Lesson 25, multiplying and dividing decimal numbers. So when we multiply decimal numbers, you multiply like normal, but you have to, in your answer, you count the decimal places that are in the whole problem, and that's how many decimal places you need in your answer. And then when you divide, you gotta make sure that your divisor is a whole number. And then you bring that decimal up when you divide it. If you do it on your calculator, you don't realize that the calculator is actually dividing it by a whole number. It does moving the decimal for you. So when you do a paper pencil method, you do need to make sure that your divisor is a whole number. And this is just some clues on when you're working with decimals. When you multiply or when you add and subtract, make sure you line up the decimals. When you multiply, count the number of decimal places. When you divide, just make sure that the divisor is a whole number and then bring the decimal straight up. And then if you move the decimal point over in the divisor, you gotta make sure you move it in the dividend as well. And just fill in any empty spaces with zeros when you're dividing. So let's take a look at some examples. 0.3 times 0.12. I usually put the bigger decimal on top, or the one that has the most decimal places on top, and then multiply that by 0.3. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 0 is 0. I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places. I need 3 decimal places in my answer, so I have 0.036. You'll notice I didn't use this other 0. I didn't want to have a whole line of zeros because everything's going to be zeros. So I just did everything all on that one line. The next one, 1.5 squared. It's the same thing as saying 1.5 times 1.5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Put our 0 down. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 7 is 12. 1 plus 1 is 2. I have 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places in my answer. So 2.25. Next one. 0.4 times 0.12. Again, I'm going to put the one with the most decimal places on top. 0.4. Multiply. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 0 is 0. I got 1, 2, 3 decimal places. 3 decimal places in my answer. Then simplify 0.3 times 0.3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 0 is 0. Everything else is zeros. I have 1, 2 decimal places, so I have 2 decimal places in my answer. Next one, simplify 4.25 times 10. Whenever you're multiplying by a power of 10, you just have to move the decimal place that many times, however many zeros there are in 10, to the right. So if I have 1 0 in 10, I'm just moving the decimal place 1 place to the right. So that would give me 42.5. Simplify 6.75 times 10 to the third. So I'm going to write my 6.75 here. 10 to the third means that's times 1,000. That's 3 zeros. So I'm going to move it to the right 3 zeros. I'm just going to fill in any open hole here with a 0 because my decimal point is here now. So I have an answer of 6,750. Next problem. What is the cost of 86.86 pounds of cheese at $3.90 per pound? So I'm going to take my $3.90 and I'm going to multiply that by 0.86. Now when I add up the total decimal places, I am not counting the 0 because there's tons of zeros after that. So I don't need to count that one. So really I only have 3 decimal places, a 9, 8, and a 6. So just keep that in mind when we do that for our answer. So 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 9 is 54. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 5 is 23. Put our 0 down. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 9 is 72. 8 times 3 is 24. Plus 7 is 31. Everything else is zeros underneath. So add. 0 plus 0 is 0, 4 plus 0 is 4, 3 plus 2 is 5, 3 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 0 is 3. Now I need to have 3 decimal places in my answer. And we're not counting this 0 here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 3 decimal places. So my answer to the nearest cent would be $3.35, which would make sense because if 1 pound is $3.90 and you don't have a full pound, you only have 0.86 of a pound. So it has to be less than $3.90, which we do, of $3.35. The next one, what is the cost of 10.2 gallons of gas at 2.249 per gallon? So I'm going to put the 2.249 at top, multiply this by 10.2. 2 times 9 is 18, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4. Next line, everything is zeros. Put 2 zeros down, 1 times 9 is 9, 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 2 is 2. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. When I add straight down, I need to have 4 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places, and then to the nearest cent, it would be $22.94. Next problem, simplify with division now. So I'm going to, since my divisor is a whole number, I don't need to move any decimal places. So I have 0.48 divided by 8. I'm going to put my decimal point on top. 8 cannot go into 0. 8 cannot go into 4. But 8 can go into 48 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. And I subtract and I get 0. So my answer would be 0.06. Next one, 4.8 divided by 5. This is a whole number, so we are good to go. 5 cannot go into 4. 5 can go into 48 9 times. 9 times 5 is 45. Subtract, I get 3. Remember, there's a bunch of zeros down here. You can bring down a 0. 5 goes into 30. 6 times 5 is 30. My answer is 0.96. Next one, 0.144 divided by 6. Again, this is a whole number. So 0.144, decimal point at top. 6 cannot go into 0. 6 cannot go into 1. 6 go into 14 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract, you get 2. Bring down the 4. 6 goes into 24. 4 times. 6 times 4 is 24. Subtract and you get 0. Next one, 1.2 divided by 0.06. This cannot be a decimal, so I need to move this 2 places to the right to make it 6. That means I gotta move this 2 places to the right, and that makes it 120. My decimal point would be right there. 6 goes into 12, 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12. Subtract, you get 0. 6 goes into 0 is 0 times. 0 times 6 is 0. So my answer is 20. You don't have to put that decimal there. I just put it there so you can see where the decimal would be. Next problem, 2.4 divided by 0.5. Move the decimal to the right in both of them. So now I have 5. Then so 24 divided by 5. 5 goes into 24 4 times. I'm going to put a 0 here. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract, you get 4. Bring down to 0. Decimal point on top. 5 goes into 40. 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract, you get 0. So our answer would be 4.8. Next one, 4.8 divided by 10 squared, which is really divided by 100. So if the decimal point is here, when we divide by a power of 10, you move it to the left that many times. So I have to move it 2 places to the left. So the decimal point is here. That leaves me with a 0 there. So my answer is 0.048. And just like with multiplication, you move the decimal place to the right. With division, you move it to the left. 3.6 divided by 0.6, I move the decimal place to 1 place to the right. So now I have 36 divided by 6, which is 6. 6 times 6 is 36. You get subtract below, you get 0, so the answer is 6. Next one, 3 divided by 0.06, move it 2 to the right. So now I have 6 here. I'm going to move this 2 to the right, which is 300. 6 goes into 30 5 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract, get 0, bring down the 0. 6 goes into 0. 0 times 6 is 0. So I end up with an answer of 50. And 2 final problems. Chloe drove her car 236.4 miles on 9.6 gallons of gas. Find the number of miles per gallon the car averaged to the nearest mile per gallon. So I got to take my miles divided by the gallons of gas. So since I have decimals in both, I need to move the decimal place 1 to the right. So it'd be 2,364 divided by 96. 96 cannot go into 2. 96 can't go into 23, but 96 can go into 236. And that can go in there 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19. If I subtract 236 minus 192, you get 44. Bring down the 4. 96 goes into 444 4 times. 4 times 96 is 384. If I subtract, so 444 minus 384 gives us 60. There's a decimal here, bring down the 0. 600 divided by 96 goes in there 6 times. 6 times 96 would give you 576. Subtract 600 minus 576 gives you 24. Bring down the next 0. 240 divided by 96 gives you 2. 96 times 2 we did was 192. I'm going to have to move this up here. So 240 minus 192 gives us 48. So it's really 480 because we have to bring down the 0. 480 divided by 96 will give us 5. So 5 times 96 is 480. So we have an answer of 24.625 miles. That one's a little bit longer steps to get the answer to that one. And then the last one, if 1.6 pounds of peaches cost $2, then what is the cost per pound? When they're saying the cost per pound, I need to take the cost divided by the number of pounds. So this is really $2 divided by 1.6. I need to move the decimal point. So now it's going to be 20.0 divided by 16. 16 goes into 20 one time. 1 times 16 is 16. Subtract, you get 4. 16 goes into 40. 2 times 16 is 32. Subtract, you get 8. Bring down the 0. 16 goes into 80. Be 5 times. 5 times 16 is 80. So it would be, cost per pound would be $1.25. that is our lesson on multiplying and dividing decimal numbers.